The three main trigonometry functions are sine, cosine, and tangent. To remember them, we call them SO, CA, TOA. Sine or SO is the opposite side over the hypotenuse. Cosine or CA is the adjacent side over the hypotenuse. And finally, tangent or TOA is the opposite side over the adjacent side. Find the sine, cosine, and tangent of angle theta on a triangle. We are given a triangle with sides 3, 4, and 5. The sine of theta is the opposite over the hypotenuse, which in this case is 4 over 5. The cosine of theta is the adjacent side over the hypotenuse, which is 3 over 5. And finally, the tangent of theta is the opposite side over the adjacent side, which is 4 over 3. We are given a triangle with an angle of 55 degrees and two sides x and 50. Step 1. Decide what trig function to use. We have two sides, x and 50. We know the adjacent side and the hypotenuse. For sine, we need the opposite side and the hypotenuse, but we don't know the opposite side, so we can't use sine. For cosine, we need the adjacent side and the hypotenuse, which we have, so we'll use cosine. Step 2. Set up the equation. We have cosine of 55 degrees equals x over 50. Step 3. Solve for x. To get x by itself, we start out by multiplying each side by 50. We then have cosine of 55 degrees times 50 equals x over 50 times 50. Dividing x by 50 and then multiplying it by 50 just makes it plain x. So we have x equals cosine of 55 degrees times 50. Then we just had to plug it into our calculator and get 28.67. We round to two places and get x equals 28.68. Now, let's try a story problem to see how this stuff is actually useful. You are 20 feet away from a 45-foot tall building. What is the angle of elevation from where you stand to the top of the building? Step 1. Make a diagram. Make a right triangle with you standing away from the building. Step 2. Now, read through the problem carefully and find the important information. We know we are 20 feet away from a 45-foot tall building, and we're finding the angle of elevation. Now add this information to the diagram. Step 3. Set up the equation. We know the opposite side and the adjacent side. For sine, we need the opposite and the hypotenuse, but we don't know the hypotenuse. Cosine, we need the adjacent and the hypotenuse, but again we don't know the hypotenuse. Finally, tangent is the opposite and the adjacent side, which is what we have. Let's set up our equation. Tangent of theta equals 45 over 20. Step 4. Solve for theta. We're going to take the inverse tan of each side to get theta alone. We then get theta equals the inverse tan of 45 over 20. Now we just plug it into our calculator and get that theta is 66.04 degrees. I hope you enjoyed the video and learned a lot about right triangle trigonometry.